Well, there you have it, folks. You heard the intro music. That can only mean one thing and one thing only. It's time for CMS-Connected, the web content management industry's only news show. Glad you guys could join us today. I am your host, Tyler Piper, and of course, sitting to my left, as always, Mr. Scott Leeward. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm really good, Tyler. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a little warm outside. I think we got that heat wave thing going on, but I think we're going to turn things up even another notch inside the studio today, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I got some good sleep last night. I'm ready to go. Weather's nice. Got some great guests, so this should be a great show.
Well, without a question. So some of the things that we're going to be discussing today, we're obviously going to be taking a pretty in-depth look into mobile web experience, because really what's taking place right now has been pretty interesting so far. Is mobile really the new king out there? Or is it just kind of simply just another channel? A lot of people are starting to ask that question. The other question that really has been starting to kind of take the industry by storm right now is, are we going mobile apps or are we just going a mobile site? Which one's good, which one's bad? So Scott, give me the prequel, if you will, to this show. Mobile, it's interesting right now, and it's kind of a good lineup of guests and as far as different channels are concerned for today's show in particular.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this space is really growing and innovating quickly. I mean, we're doing an awful lot, and people are looking to content management and to this world of digital marketing, to get their message out, to engage with customers. And certainly, when you talk about engaging with customers, we're talking about context and where are they? Where are they talking about you? Where can you interact with them? So when we talk about the mobile channel, it's certainly been around for a while, right? But we're talking about now how to strategically position that within your arsenal of channels, and how do you create that cross-channel experience. We've got a lot of innovation in the space, and so we're here to kind of dispel some rumors, point us in the right direction, and I think we should have a good show on it.
Definitely. Of course, now we're going to be dispelling some of those rumors, not just Scott and I, but as he mentioned before, we do, in fact, have some great guests going to be coming up. We've got Ian Truscott of SDL, and we have Stephen Powers from Forrester Research going to be joining us. Forrester all over the map with us here on CMS Connected. It seems like almost every other show we've got someone else from Forrester. I absolutely love it. So we're going to be talking with them in just a little bit, but you know what else? We have to go and get to our sponsors, because they're ones that basically make this entire show happen and put it all together for us. We have to acknowledge, first off, Falcon-Software. Now, Falcon actually provides web creative, e-commerce, content management, social media, mobile solutions for organizations really across the globe. Basically, they do everything underneath the sun. So we also have to acknowledge Digital Clarity Group. We're going to be talking about DCG just a little bit later on in the show as well, Scott. DCG research and advisory firm focused on navigating organizations through the digital transformation process. And as I mentioned, we are in fact going to be talking about DCG and Scott's role in DCG just a little bit later on in the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. You aren't going to want to miss this show, I promise you. So with all of that in mind, we do in fact have to go ahead and get things kind of kicked off, and let's go ahead and let's start about Ektron, because some interesting news really coming out of Ektron just a couple days ago, June 11th, they actually announced that Tim McKinnon has been appointed president of the company. Now, Tim McKinnon, no stranger, 15-year veteran of the software industry. He's actually going to be reporting to Bill Rogers, who is Ektron's founder and chief executive officer, and he's going to be responsible for Ektron's global operations and product development. Now, he joined Ektron back in February as a CTO, coming over from Oracle, actually. Now, prior to Oracle, he actually held the CTO role in the digital marketing platform group at Microsoft. So, Scott, kind of give me your thoughts. What's the motivation behind this right now? And, is McKinnon the one that's going to be leading Ektron to the promised land, if you will?
Yeah, I think, Tim's joining, and I think we covered this maybe on the show a couple of months ago. Tim's joining Ektron was, I think, a really great move for them, right? Where you're bringing in somebody, what Ektron is trying to do with their platform is they're trying to separate themselves a little bit from the Sitecores and the other .NET web content management companies out there, and they're taking a little bit of a different approach. They're not saying, let's go build all of this together into one, and we're going to provide everything within under our umbrella. As we've talked about the expansiveness of the web content management fences and how they're starting to include a lot of other things, they're trying to take a best-of-breed approach, right? And so certainly pulling on someone who is the CTO of Endeca, you mentioned Oracle, and he was with Endeca before Oracle, before they bought them. I think that's where he got his really big claim to fame there, is we're talking about some serious digital innovation over at Endeca. It's a wonderful tool, what they've done with search and how they've really started this whole notion of engagement. Endeca is definitely at the forefront of this. So I think having somebody to come in with that CTO pedigree, that technical knowledge base, to come in and I think really fill a hole for Ektron, where they didn't necessarily have the CTO position before. I think Bill Rogers was trying to play both roles, both as president and as CTO. So bringing in somebody with a great pedigree in that technical background was a really good move to bring him in the first
I wanted
place.
that from taking a look at it from the business standpoint as well,
Yeah.
because that's the thing that I always have to kind of go back to, because while the guys that are great with the technical backgrounds, do they necessarily have what it takes as far as the the business background? What do you thought from that perspective?
And that's where I wanted to go. So I think it was great to bring him in the first place. And what I really liked about it and commented about that was it was great to now have somebody who can just focus on the technical platform, right? Where Bill was trying to do kind of both, and they had multiple people doing both. Now they've gone and undone what I said was great. That now they still don't have somebody focusing solely on the technical aspects. So now he's going to be president. So certainly his CTO background comes into play, and he can help provide them that technical direction. But he's also trying to provide company direction. And certainly Bill is still there and involved as the chairman. But I think he's now taking on a larger role. And in the past 3 months, did he really have the ability to kind of reset their technical direction or not? I know he brought on a number of people, but did he, has he had time to really fulfill on his technical vision for what he wanted for them and set that into motion? I'm not 100% sure. I think,
what's the bottom line? Let's go back to it. What's the bottom line? In your mind, good or bad?
Look, I think that it's good. Overall, but I'm kind of lukewarm to it because again, I don't think overburdening somebody who hasn't played the role of a president before. He's worked with a lot. He was at Fast and he did a lot of stuff for Microsoft, and then he went to Endeca and did really well there. I'm just not sure that playing the role of president is in his wheelhouse per se, and so. Ektron I think, has made a lot of strides. I think it helps them technically. I'm just not sure if it sets Ektron, for sale in the direction they necessarily need to go.
Okay,
from that
so
perspective.
right now, obviously, very fresh with this position. Just a couple days ago, from this right here, that this actually took place. That he moved into this role of president. Yep. How long do you have to give, or what do you have to see in order for you to go one way or the other?
Today.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna, probably start to see an awful lot of things coming out with Ektron. I know that they've got. We should see by November. So in November is when they have their big customer thing. And I'm sure they're going to make some pretty significant announcements. It'll be interesting to see what some of those announcements are. They've already made, even before Tim came in, a fair amount of changes to their platform, their newest version. Multi-tiers, their architecture, a number of things. So it'll be interesting to see, what direction he takes them in. I think we'll have some more information by November. I don't know that that's really long enough to say though whether they've made the right move here or not. But so I'm kind of lukewarm a little bit to it. I've heard some rumors about kind of why this happened and stuff like that. Not anything I can confirm and tell you here, but I think I'm okay with it. I like Tim coming in. I'm just not sure if I would want to go doing the same thing as that you had before.
Let's move on. I want to go ahead and let's talk about Salesforce and let's talk about Buddy Media because it's basically in play. We're seeing exactly what's going to be taking place as far as Salesforce.com. Actually, very close to you, June 4th, Kathy McKnight from Digital Clarity Group actually wrote that Salesforce.com is building its bridge to span the social enterprise, really. And with the confirmation that we'll spend $689 million on Buddy Media. It basically shows another timber to sit alongside, Jigsaw, which Radiant 6 was the big one. People were wondering when they got Radiant 6 what was going to take place. This is just another thing to kind of go and work alongside it, and Ripple as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that Salesforce is making the right moves. There's certainly question about how do you, with any merger, with any acquisition, how do you go kind of under the hood, make all this stuff work together? I don't mean to dispel or make that sound easier than it is, right? I mean, no question, they've got a lot of work to do. But in terms of, if we're just looking at this as now the portfolio that they offer, I think that they've made some really nice moves to push themselves into that social CRM space. I mean, they already have Chatter. Chatter just recently shifted over into offering IM capabilities. You mentioned Ripple. They've got Force.com. All those things are kind of for the employee social. And then, as you said, Radiant 6 now starts to give them that ability to go in and listen, and it's capturing information from what's going on in the social world, how people, and allowing them to respond in real time. What Buddy Media offers them is this kind of social marketing suite, right? Yeah. And so I think what they're talking about now is that they are the marketing cloud, is what this new offering kind of brings to them. If you look at what Salesforce is saying about them, is it allows them to kind of be the one-stop shop.
I was going to say one-stop shop. It really is. I mean, everything is there for everybody, right?
That's right. So Everyone has been talking about social CRM for a really long time. Certainly, Salesforce was positioned best to get there, and they were really taking that to the next level. I said before as well that I didn't think that the WCM gurus out there were giving enough credo to when they jumped in with Site.com, right? So when they started offering a web content management system, and it's a relatively light web content management system, but nonetheless, they see the emphasis that they're trying to allow their customers to go build this bridge, to go be able to engage with their audience. So it's not just about providing CRM information on your customers anymore. They really are starting to build that out.
Exactly. I mean, it basically boils down to, as far as Salesforce is concerned, being an entire digital enterprise, really. I mean, that's what they're looking to help their customers actually build up. So it's interesting to see. Let's move on, though. Sure. I want to go ahead and let's talk about Kapow and SDL partner to automate legacy digital asset migration, really. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Now, on May 22nd, actually, enterprise data management technology vendor Falcon-Software announced a partnership with SDL's web content management division to automate the migration of legacy digital assets to the SDL WCM application. Now, in your mind, Scott, we're going to be talking about with SDL in just a few moments. So, remember the hot eyes. You've got these on your back right now.
I feel them piercing me from my left. I feel the SDL eyes piercing.
But as Kapow, is it the right answer to the process of migrating content into the SDL platform right now? Your thoughts?
Look, again, no one or very few folks are on 1.0 of any of these kind of web content management systems and enterprise content management systems. Most people are moving from something into something, right? And so just migration as a whole is a really big barrier to entry for anyone. It's a difficult thing to overcome. There's a lot of work, and it should not be underestimated whatsoever. So the idea that there's a Kapow out there, who I've known for a couple of years now, they were essentially a screen scraping software that allowed you to go and capture anything that you could get to on a website through a URL, be able to pull that out, put it into structured data format, and be able to now push it into anything. And they found they found this web content management world and started to see that this is a really nice use case for them to be able to help with these content migrations. And they've made a really lot of traction with that. They've really done a lot in the way of working with a number of vendors to help them with this process. I think what the LDL does, and they're talking specifically about digital assets, right? So we're talking about specifically about pulling digital assets and placing it in there. I think number one, the first thing that we want to be clear about, and I think Ian would back me up on this as well, is that content migration is still a very big thing. There's no question about it, right? This is a difficult challenge to overcome.
With it because it is a very daunting task.
And you cannot overcome it with automation.
Yep.
Right? I mean, automation helps you do some of the minutiae work that you've got to do, from copying, pasting here, and putting it there, that sort of a thing. So it certainly helps with that, but you can't get beyond the notion of all the work that you've got to do strategically to be looking at all of your assets and all that. The challenge that I have with it is it's one thing for web content management where we're talking about pulling a lot of editorial documents and that kind of stuff and pages. Much of that you probably still want to live on your new site when you do this migration. When we're talking about digital assets, though, we've talked a lot on this show about digital asset management and how it's really coming to the forefront and people are looking to these media assets. It usually wasn't done right before. So in other words, what you're pulling from, you probably had an awful lot of replicated digital assets, pictures living multiple times in multiple formats, and when you pull into a digital asset management system, it helps to manage and avoid some of those things so that you start to look to a single asset that might surface here as a larger image, here as a thumbnail, here as that sort of a thing. So a digital asset management system helps you have a single source of digital content, of digital assets, and then to be able to multi-purpose those. When you're talking about just screen scraping and moving a whole bunch of stuff over from there to here, you're talking about moving a lot of junk as well. So I think SDL is right. They've got a really nice process that they'll help to work their clients through, and hopefully their services, folks help with the. We've talked a lot about the role of an agency and of a systems integrator and the emphasis there. But that upfront management about what do you want to move and pull from over here into over there. You don't just want to do this kind of automated garbage in, garbage out sort of a situation. So I think I tend to think that digital assets have been underplayed for so long and been undermanaged for so long that just some automated moving them over from one place to the other could be pretty hurtful. So it's great.
We are in fact going to be having Ian Truscott on in just a few moments too. So hopefully I see him smiling in the back right now. So we're going to have some fun as well.
I think it's a good move though. Yeah, I don't want to say it's a good move. I just put the caution still on the services notion and all the effort that goes into strategically deciding what you should move.
Cool. All right, so we, speaking of moving, we have to move on as well. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Microsoft and buying Yammer right now, because this is another kind of interesting kind of, just wondering what the play is here, to be honest with you, from my perspective. Microsoft, they actually agreed to acquire Yammer for $1.2 billion. That's according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. Big chunk of dough right there. Now, the move actually extends Microsoft's reach into corporate information technology and lets it compete more thoroughly against Google by bolstering its cloud computing offerings. What's the play here, Scott? I'm anxious to know your thoughts on this, because when I actually took a look at this, I wasn't quite 100% sold on it, just from the social standpoint and everything.
It's you,
I see, I'm learning more and
Look
more
at
as we
you.
go. But
This
what's
is
your thoughts on this
wonderful.
one?
This is wonderful. And I just had dinner with one of Tim Walters, who's an analyst with my team, and another analyst who's a former analyst, and we were having the same conversation over dinner last night. I want to say a couple things. Number one, this is not confirmed news, right? So they have not come out and said that this is official. Even though the Wall Street Journal published it, I think it's probably a pretty good source, but this is not official news yet. So that's the first thing to say. Number two is that's the big question. There are a lot of aspects to Microsoft. And Tim Walters wrote on our blog on digitalclaritygroup.com, he talked about this purchase and talked about it from the standpoint of SharePoint and what this does from an employee collaboration inside the office within the SharePoint enterprise. If you've got this Yammer capabilities, what that does to further the kind of enterprise 2.0 situation. But in my mind, the Dynamics team could have bought this as well. This could be a CRM play. This could be back to the point that Salesforce acquiring and going social as well. And look, Microsoft is a huge company. So those are two completely separate divisions. And I think somebody, and I don't want to misstate who it was, but this came up at dinner last night. Somebody over, again, to give Forrester the plug, blogged about this as well, that this could be completely, Jekyll or Hyde, one play or another, depending on which part of Microsoft bought them. And I don't think that they have confirmed that at all. So we really don't know where this sits within there.
The thing with Microsoft, they've got money. We know that. They can take as many swings at the plate as they want. They don't get three and they're out. They can continue to play. So, is it a good move? Right now, obviously, like we said before, it's not necessarily confirmed just yet, but these are the reports that are, in fact, coming out. Do you like it or no?
The question is good for who?
Yeah, who's it good for?
Right. So look, I think going social in general is a good move regardless. And so whether this sits on the Dynamics and the CRM side, or whether this sits on the SharePoint side, no question it's good for either customer base. I think to be able to use the Yammer capabilities, which has pretty good respect in the industry, in either of those situations, in either of those use cases, is a good move for Microsoft. Right. From the customer's perspective, the kind of challenge is, look, Yammer was constantly innovating. I don't really think that anybody under the Microsoft umbrella innovates very much. If it falls under the SharePoint umbrella, we're talking about 3-year development cycles and release cycles.
Could be lost. We'll see.
It's a challenge, right? So they bought it to keep up with the pace. They didn't go try to just build it themselves, or maybe bought it. We think they bought it. Either way, it does well for either side of them. I don't think you'll see it cross-pollinate, because that's just not how they work. And it's good for either customer base, and going social is never a bad thing. Who it hurts, when I say who is it good for, is the other, if it's SharePoint, as Tim wrote about, the whole ecosystem, the NewsGators, the Drives, the other ones who didn't get bought, that's a big challenge for them, because they were providing those services to the SharePoint crowd, for example, as well, and now they've picked their horse to ride.
Yeah, we'll definitely see, as we said, to see if it actually comes to fruition or not. Yes. But you know what? Let's kind of spend just a couple quick minutes on some of the things that people have been talking about as far as topics as of late around the WCM industry altogether. Is commoditizing of core capabilities. Really, what's your thoughts on this? Positive side, people are kind of looking at it from the standpoint of saying, okay, we hardly have any meaningful competition right there. Innovative, more with new services, leveraging wide reach of kind of offerings out there. On the negative side, as WCM kind of becomes more commoditized, wouldn't the selection process become even more difficult and frustrating, or no?
So I was the one that this was a last minute add-on that I shot over a note and said, let's get this on the show tomorrow, specifically because I was having a little bit of a Twitter battle with some colleagues in the industry on this topic.
This is his platform, folks.
Exactly.
That's what we try to do.
This is the lazy man's blog, right? This was like, instead of having to go write about it, let's just put it on the show and talk about it. But no, it had a lot of other folks that were chiming in, so I think it's a good topic. The question is web content management, the management aspect of web content management, commoditized? A lot of the innovation that we're seeing, and a lot of the vendors, some of those who are with us even today, one of those who's with us today, their emphasis tends to be on what are the new bells and whistles that I can give you, on the presentation side to reach out to your audience, right? So whether it's on the personalization side or whether it's on the marketing automation side or whatever, it seems to be all about web content management. The flashy bells and whistles are now all about the kind of presentation side of that and reaching out to the audience. The question that we were having as kind of the CMS insiders debate was whether or not the kind of under the hood typical back-end web content management capabilities, like everything from content architecture and workflow and some of those things, the typical how you handle metadata and how you handle taxonomies and those sorts of things. That's not as fun to talk about, and there's no client that's out there saying, hey, I want one that has the best content architecture, right? So they're not selling on it. The vendors are not trading on it. But the question is that part of it, has it been commoditized? Is that like done in all the And my answer to this was, no way in this world. That while no one's asking about it, someone needs to be taking care that we have. First of all, there's a lot of different ways of managing content. You've got page-based systems, component-based systems. You've got a lot of different ways you can go. And if you don't have a proper underlying architecture, and I think, by the way, there are some vendors out there that don't necessarily care about this as much, you won't be able to do things like personalization, right? Or you can, but your degree to which you can personalize, whether or not you can have this particular portion of content on a page be personalized and tailored to somebody, is going to be completely dependent on the underlying architecture that you have. And so while it's not something that maybe makes press releases, they handle things very differently from vendor to vendor, right? And you better take note of how it's handled, because you might not be able to use to their fullest extent those social capabilities, the user-generated content capabilities, the personalization capabilities. Some of those things are completely dependent on that underlying thing. So it's not going to make coffee chat or water cooler chat in the marketing floor, right? Hey, we just got this great, but at the same time, somebody needs to be looking out for it. And the way this came out yesterday was a presentation by somebody who's a guru that I respect very much to a bunch of systems integrators to say, by the way, focus on the presentation layer, not as much on that kind of underlying stuff, because that train has left the whatever, I always mess up my analogies, but that this is commoditized, and the answer is no, it's not. And if I can talk to the SIs who are out there, you are the ones who have to hold on true to making sure that you pay an awful lot of attention during your implementations to that underlying architecture. And when you're helping companies through their selection process, you better darn well focus on how these companies do it, or else you're going to lead them astray. There you go. Can you tell there's any passion there?
Blog post written. Score, I think, settled. We'll see about that. All right,
somebody owes me a beer, by the way. There's somebody out there, you know who you are, and you owe me a beer.
Fair enough. All right, so you know who you are. Buy Scott a beer. Okay, let's move on. And we talked about SDL a little bit earlier, but now we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit more about SDL. So let's kind of jump into it. Now, obviously, we are going to be taking a pretty in-depth look into mobile right now. Roughly 90% of the world's population is utilizing mobile right now. And mobile web traffic set to basically surpass desktop traffic by the year 2014, and everybody's utilizing smartphones. We know this, left and right, all over the place. It's safe to say mobile technology is now an essential part of web CMS landscape. But really what I find fascinating is how mobile devices have become both consumers and producers of big data. That's one thing that a lot of people are forgetting, that it does in fact produce a lot of data, generating GPS, photos, videos are being uploaded simultaneously to Facebook, YouTube, all over the place. So to talk about this right now, and is mobile the new king, we have to bring in the experts right now. We welcome in Ian Truscott, VP of Products North America at SDL. Ian, welcome in. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Excellent. So with all that in mind, everything that's taken place, we hear content is king.
Right.
Is mobile kind of now the new king, really, if you will, of all this content, or no?
Absolutely not, no.
Really?
I don't.
Over.
Yeah, that's it.
Great.
Yeah, we either close it there or we have an hour. We do have an hour, right?
We do have an hour.
I think that mobile is a very exciting and unique channel for customer engagement and customer experience, but it is just that. It's just a channel. And some of the things that we've held on to for years, and some of the things you were just talking about content governance, and the underlying infrastructure, I think, are still incredibly important. And I think people can get carried away with the delivery, i.e. the mobile as a channel, and take a siloed view of that. And I don't think that's really going to work in the long term when people are thinking about this holistic customer experience management across these different channels.
Yeah. So what does it do for you when you're now put in, I think one of the nice things about this is we're at least now thinking about the context, right? So mobile and how folks' ultimate audience is interacting with our content is now we're thinking about, are they kicked back on their couch on their iPad? Are they sitting there on their mobile device? I mean, what does that do from thinking about the customer standpoint in terms of your plotting out your mobile strategy?
I think you said content about 3 times in that sentence, and I think that's the important thing. People are absolutely using mobile devices, but it's really about I think it's about the task that somebody wants to achieve with you through the customer experience. Yeah. So I've been talking to a lot of our larger organisations recently about mobile. And one of the things that really comes through is that what they want to do is they may have multiple strategies depending on what their customer is doing with them at that particular point. If you're a large financial organisation, you're looking for a cash machine, you're not going to download an app for that. You probably want a mobile web experience that offers you that as one of the early parts of the task.
Sure.
So that's, I think that there isn't this generic idea that people are just consuming your website on an iPhone. I think people need to think a bit more about that, but it isn't. It's just another channel, a part of your CXM strategy.
Sure, and certainly it's nice though that we're again forcing, I think, the content author to think about that context, right, and to think about what they're trying to do. We've been talking about this for years about create your personas and create your scenarios and think about, and now this mobile revolution is just forcing you to really think about that, right?
Absolutely, and I've been giving a lot of thought to this mobile thing recently, and I'm actually speaking at Forrester next week.
Plug.
Absolutely. And we like Forrester here by the sounds of things, so that's great. But the thing I found with interviewing our customers and talking to our customers is it actually comes down to these basic things that we've talked about in the past when we work together, in looking at what is it that you're trying to achieve, and what content do you need to achieve that, and then the channel really is a secondary thing. And I think that you do need to recognise the capabilities of the device and how this adds an extra essence to the experience, but I don't think it's not the be-all in itself. The fact you're on mobile is just the fact that you're on the channel. And actually, I'm allowed. I know, because I'll just carry on for an hour. I do apologize.
And like I said, your English accent has wooed our entire audience. They're all now in the slumber, just kind of listening.
My English accent is the channel. Unfortunately, I don't have the content. Right? So so the thing I'm saying as well is there's that cross-mobile experience as well. And I think people think of mobile as a single thing. I've recently blogged about email, for example, as a mobile engagement strategy as well. And people forget about that. I mean, I find that if I click on a link to LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn then takes me to its mobile site. Yeah. It doesn't take me to the app, whereas that would be the experience that I would want. So I think that's where we are.
That's a really good. How do you counsel your clients who tend to want to take this kind of having the pendulum swing from one end completely to the other, where what's your caution to them when they're saying, now mobile is it? And, even just the question, and we queued you up with that, but mobile is the new king, we've got to do everything mobile.
Absolutely.
I think bringing up email is a great example.
Yeah, I think that, things get a lot of focus. Mobile is getting a lot of focus at the moment. Yeah. I think we've had that with social also, and again, I could say the same things about social. I think that's another channel of engagement. Yep. It isn't a be-all in itself. And I've been around the industry for a long time, as you know, Scott, and I make the analogy to Flash when, back in 2000 or 98 or whatever, and people were building these siloed Flash applications because Flash was cool. Mobile today is cool, and people are having their agency build these mobile apps and stuff without thinking back to the whole governance, not just governance, but their CXM strategy as an organisation and the way it fits into that, and I think that's important.
And what's the big question on customers' mind from your perspective? I mean, what are the things, I know there's the, HTML5 versus an app, there's a number of, that might be the more technical one, but what are the kind of marketers or the customers on your side, what are they wanting to know about
I think
here?
the challenge, the folks that I tend to talk to are usually the larger organizations that are trying to centralize some of these operations due to the nature of our engagement with our customers and the size of them. So these guys are actually trying, how do they offer the marketers in market, in brand, in country, a service that allows them to do this. It's the same as we've always had with WCM, right? It's that you want to centralize certain aspects of your content management, and how do you actually give some control to the in-market? And that is around mobile as well. As we say, it's just another channel. So I think that's the challenge they have, where it's a bit like the old days where somebody would go out into an agency and then go and do something with Flash. They want to now bring that into the central thing. People are doing these experiments, if you like, and now people are looking at how to operationalize this and make this part of their strategy, rather than just these little federated Wild West things.
Sure thing.
So looking at the statistics, though, so where we are right now, I understand what you mean, but looking to the future and kind of going ahead, does that change? Do things change, and does the whole mentality, does that evolve as well?
I think that mobile as a content consumption channel, as a customer engagement channel, as a transaction channel, is going to be the primary place we're going to be dealing with our banks, with our organisations. So absolutely, that would change in terms of where the hits to your content are coming from, but does it actually change anything in terms of the fact that we still need to be consistent? We still have the same governance around the kinds of things we can say to our consumers. If you're a pharmaceutical company, you can talk one way to a UK doctor and a different way to an American doctor. All that stuff still remains. We're in the same world, right? Yeah. So I think that won't change. But the experience for us is going to be very exciting. If you can combine location, all that stuff we've talked about, combine location with the content, with what you know about me, to build a very relevant experience, very exciting.
And relevance.
But is the content any different? Is the governance around that any different? Well, no, it's just you're getting me to my goal much quicker.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Full on. Excellent. Ian, honestly, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. It goes quick, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Yeah, I managed to let Scott get a word in edgeway, so
that was wonderful.
Yeah, normally it's one or the other of us, right?
I was just going to say, I allowed you to talk.
Thank you, Scott.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Ian Truscott of SDL. Big thank you to him for stopping by the studio today and jumping on. Interesting conversation for sure. Now, we do have to take a very quick break, but coming up in a few seconds, we've got a lot more conversations surrounding mobile coming up. We've got Stephen Powers from Forrester Research going to be joining us to talk about mobile applications or just a mobile web. Which one is the right one? Which one's the wrong one? Or are they both kind of still good? We're going to be discussing that, plus rapid fire, that and more coming your way in a few seconds here on CMS Connected.
Businesses today demand a powerful web content management and online marketing platform that can provide the best value at an affordable price with unlimited website possibilities. Kentico, the .NET Enterprise Marketing Solution and web content management platform of choice, powers more than 12,000 websites in over 84 countries, which means you get a stable, well-tested solution. Fully loaded with over 350 web parts and controls and more than 80 extensible modules. Kentico provides you with a fully integrated solution for building your online presence and running successful online marketing campaigns. It allows you to quickly launch an effective B2B or B2C site, intranet, online store, or branded online community, fully integrated with Facebook and Twitter. Organizations need to be more effective at catering to the personalities of their site visitors and the way they consume information. Sites need to more dynamically adjust to each site visitor to optimize their experience. Kentico EMS delivers a complete customer experience management platform that provides all of the necessary capabilities for interactive marketing, from planning and conception through optimization and execution. And lastly, analysis. Gain the insight required to analyze your marketing performance. Align the content, execution, and analytics critical for successful interactive campaigns, speeding delivery, and optimizing return on investment. With a fully integrated set of online marketing tools, Kentico EMS can improve your online marketing efforts, which allows you to focus on what's important, making your business successful. Test drive Kentico EMS today to get a complete appreciation of all its powerful features and capabilities.
Welcome back into CMS Connected here on the Pulse Network, everyone. I'm your host, Tyler Pybin, and we have another great guest joining us in studio right now, Stephen Powers. He is the VP and Research Director at Forrester Research. So, Steve, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Tyler. What about you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. A little warm here in Boston, though, huh?
Yeah, it's that time of year. It's that time of year.
Not necessarily a bad thing, though,
I was
folks.
hoping we'd get a beach backdrop here.
We were trying to hope for things like that, but things will happen to change.
Instead, we've got blazing lights on.
Exactly. Trust me, folks, it does get plenty inside the studio right now. But Steve, let's kind of dive into it right now, because during May's show, we kind of briefly touched upon responsive design. And that was actually Scott during our rapid fire segment. But now that we've dedicated almost an entire show to mobile, let's kind of dig into it just a little bit more deeper. Kind of explain what responsive design is and how does it support a mobile user experience right now. Then we'll get into the mobile site versus mobile app, which way to go. But kind of explain that a little bit more for me.
Well, responsive design, boiled down to its very simplest essence, is essentially using CSS3 queries and other scripting to essentially adapt on the fly a presentation. So you can create one presentation template if you want. You can create one presentation template if you'd like to, and essentially, whether you're viewing the presentation on a browser, on a traditional web browser, or on a smartphone, it will adapt, as opposed to creating. Think about it. If you're not using responsive design and you want to have an experience that is adapted to your iPhone, then you have to create an iPhone template, right? And if you want one that is tailored to your iPad, then you have to create an iPad template. And if you want one for BlackBerry, you have to create a BlackBerry template, right? Yep. So you're creating all of these various templates, and that's just for a single page. Yeah. So then multiply that by the number of pages or the number of templates that you have on your site, and it gets to be pretty unmanageable after a while. So the idea behind responsive design is to essentially have one template or one set of templates that can adapt to whatever device that you're looking at the content on.
Yep. And I love the discussion. I gave my thoughts on content on the responsive design point last month, as Tyler pointed out, and the notion of what it does from the standpoint of thinking about the customer and that customer centricity. Just when you're talking about what to prioritize, what content to show on a website, it's nice to be thinking that mindset. But I really was excited to get you on to talk not just as much, you did a great overview of responsive design, but I'd love to hear from you about, is that really what it's about? Are we really, answer the question that Ian asked for us, is mobile king?
No, it's not. It's not. I agree with Ian.
I was going to say we're going to have to bring
Ian
back in.
Bring him back in. Let's play back what he talked about. No, it's he's going to be a lot more charming than I am, because I don't have that nice British accent. I want to go work in a place where a Boston accent is considered as charming as a British accent is here. I don't know where that place is.
You've supplemented there or complemented with the facial hair. So you've got the kind of you look like the guy. Yeah, just need a pipe.
So I ultimately do agree with Ian. Mobile is not king. Don't get me wrong. It's very, very important, but it is just another channel. And think about 10 years ago when a lot of our clients and a lot of us who are working in the web started to transition communication processes from being print-based to being web-based, right? And we all transform our processes because we were thinking, okay, this is going to be this is the channel, right? Yep. And yes, and web is an important channel. It's a huge channel. However, here we are, years later, and a lot of our clients are again talking about transforming their production processes around a single channel. Yep. And I think that's the wrong way to view it. Look, there's always going to be something interesting to do on the front end. Years ago, hey, remember SGML?
Absolutely.
And then we had then we had RIAs, and now it's responsive design. There's always going to be something interesting to do on the front end. And to me, what's more important is that you design your content so you have the appropriate content architecture, you have the appropriate granularity, you have the appropriate taxonomy, you have the appropriate markup, so you can take that content and transform it to whatever the hot channel du jour is, whether that is traditional web or mobile, or we're hearing a lot about smart TVs, interactive TVs, or whatever is coming down the pike. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to be in the position of, oh, now interactive TV is the big channel. We've got to go and re-engineer all of our production processes again.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. So Dean Barker, you definitely owe me a beer, because he have another industry expert, just supported the whole point that I was making when I got on my pulpit there a little bit ago about the underlying management does matter. So listen, at Forrester, you guys are obviously a big source. Folks are coming to you around what are the technologies out there we should be looking at. You've done a wonderful wave this last year where you've really put the emphasis on customer experience management. And a lot of it's about they're seeing a lot of innovation on that presentation layer, on the things that are kind of the bells and whistles and flash. But with what you just said here, what's your guidance to customers then who are just looking, they do have this strong urge to go mobile or to go into one of those flashy areas, and you've just talked about some underlying emphasis on how things are done underneath. How do you kind of offset those two in terms of your interactions with your customers?
Well, make sure you have the strong foundation first, right? Because you're going to be building mobile or traditional web or smart TV or kiosks or whatever the new channel is on top of that foundation. So again, it's make sure you have the properly, what I mentioned before, granular, architected, well-tagged content, and then you'll be able to transform it to whatever channel you want. I was listening to you earlier, and we were talking about, is this functionality commoditized? And no, I don't think it's commoditized either. I think there's certain functionality that is, check in, check out, and things, workflows, and kind of the basics of content management. But do you know what I see a lack of right now within that engagement layer? We have the content management layer, we have the content engagement layer, and then we have the measurement layer. Within the engagement layer, something that's going to automate the processes more. So there's room for a content engagement application that can reach into any repository, whether it's structured or unstructured, and pull that content out and contextually transform it based on factors like the screen size, based on factors like environment and demographic and browsing behavior and past buying behavior and so on and so forth, language and things like that. And that's something that none of the vendors have cracked right now, but that's where the differentiation lies. Watch for somebody to figure that out, and they're going to be in very good position.
They're listening here closely because you'll give them a very positive review if they come and bring that to you, right?
If they do it well. Sure.
So where are customers in this right now? I mean, where kind of are they in terms of their shift towards engagement and their shift towards this notion of cross-channel that we've both talked about quite a bit? Where do you think folks are?
I think in a lot of the cases, they've actually done a pretty good job with their content management processes. They do have a relatively solid foundation upon which to build. The trouble is that they still tend to be very siloed in terms of their channel thinking. So hey, we have a team that is in charge of print, we have a team that's in charge of traditional web, we have a team that's in charge of mobile, we have a team that's in charge of email, and so on and so forth. And when you have siloed teams like that, siloed organizations, you're not going to have consistency across channels, and you're not going to have context across channels. Let's an example. When you call up a bank, you get the automated voice response, and you type in your account number, and a few minutes later, if you're lucky, you finally get somebody on the other end of the phone. What's the first thing they ask you for?
Yeah, your
account number.
Give me the account right now.
It's not contextual.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing. Yeah, and it's frustrating. And that's the same thing that a lot of our clients are dealing with. They have all of these separate organizations dealing with channels. So if I'm in the mobile channel today, that experience is not necessarily contextual in terms of how I interacted with that company in the traditional web channel or the email channel yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem that our clients face. They're pretty good within their silos, but they don't yet have a holistic strategy to pull everything together. They certainly don't have the technologies to do it now. And frankly, I can't take too many shots at them. It's not all their fault. The technology, the integrated technology to support that type of cross-channel engagement simply doesn't exist right now.
Say it's not there.
Not there.
And it's a technology problem, but you've illustrated a governance issue and just how they're organizationally structured, how they view the customer, that they've got. I mean, I don't even know what you might do to tell them from that standpoint.
Well, you do have to look at the organization. You can't have a mobile team that is separate from your traditional web team. That's not going to work. And this gets back to that old chestnut, which we're all tired of talking about, but is still very true, the whole IT marketing divide or the whole IT business divide. And as long as you have them separate, it's going to be a problem. This whole idea of having a holistic strategy is going to be a problem. Some of the more innovative companies that we speak to are combining those groups as part of a digital experience team. They're not thinking about print yet, they probably should be, but this is a big step for them. They have a digital experience team that has maybe a chief customer experience officer who's in charge, and they have both IT people, both technical people, and business people and marketing people reporting to the same structure. So they're on the same page. and then you start breaking down some of those technical silos once the organizational silos are gone.
I'm definitely seeing that as well.
I love it. Mobile. We're hitting it hard today, folks. I absolutely love it. Stephen, honestly, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for dropping by the studio. I know you mentioned when you came in, you're right up the street, so appreciate you coming by, and look forward to possibly having you again very soon.
Love to come back.
Excellent. Stephen Powers right there, folks, of Forrester Research. Great stuff so far, but now it is in fact time to go in the spotlight. So today in the spotlight, we are in fact going to be talking about Percussion. Yes, we are going to be taking a look at Percussion right now. And what's interesting about them, to give you an idea of some of the folks that they happen to work with, autotrader.com, weather.com, healthcare.gov, and usa.gov. So some interesting things. So as far as the spotlight is concerned, Scott, kind of give me your thoughts on Percussion really right now. We can kind of delve into this a little bit more.
Sure. So at the highest level, even those that you just mentioned, those clients that you just mentioned, are kind of historical Percussion clients, right? So Percussion for a long time was known, they had CM system, was their big web content management system. And it was a multi-tiered architecture, just really set and primed to take on those very difficult integration clients like a weather.com or a cars.com, where there's just tons of information being funneled in that you've got to be able to kind of push towards some channel. And they weren't necessarily the presentation tier, but they're
very content heavy. I mean, these are massive content
very
heavy.
Content heavy, very integration heavy. It was a really large system. It was a large play in the market. And they were definitely kind of seen as one of the larger enterprise plays. Then they kind of went away for a little while, right? Percussion had a couple of years where you didn't hear much about them, to be honest. And that was, I would say, maybe 2 years ago or so. Up until about a year ago, you didn't see them around a whole lot. I think in the 2010 era, it was kind of like, where are they? What are they doing? And so they certainly had a fair amount of legacy clients that they were working with, but they weren't necessarily showing up on a whole lot of shortlists per se, or necessarily winning them. And so they have been kind of rebranding themselves a little bit, where they've created a new product called CM1, which is a much lighter, smaller, less complex. And their big kind of shtick in the industry is, we don't like all the complexity of it. This stuff shouldn't be quite so hard. We're going to make it easier for you, and we're going to give you this kind of web content management in a box a little bit. It's going to be lower priced because we think it should be lower priced, and it's going to focus on a few core things. We're not going to take the approach, we're going to be a best of breed. We're not going to take the approach of trying to be everything to everyone, and that's kind of what CM1 is about. For me, I think they're in a real, we've seen them come out, what you just even saw on the website there, their new branding. They've just launched new branding. They've been kind of in the works. They had a really nice innovative way on their website of showing how they were kind of in the works and changing things, and now they've come out with their new design. So I like where they're going. I like the new CM1 product. I like it for that kind of mid-sized enterprise or department-oriented thing. They're definitely no longer CM1 is not for your weather.com. It's not for your large enterprise that has complex situations, right? So while they have this nice interface, drag and drop, and easy to use, and it combines a lot of social and combines a lot of some of the contemporary things.
Does that mean so it's not used for the enterprise, but we're seeing more and more companies become, SMBs, they're becoming their own kind of digital magazine. They're trying to push out content, but they don't have, obviously, the amount of capital, and they don't have the amount of funds, but they still are trying to push out a good amount of content, but want something simple. That's probably, this is what that's really geared to.
I love it. Yeah, I don't mean to sound bearish on it at all. I'm bullish on CM1. I really like the new product. I really like that it serves the kind of mid-market to lower end of the market, and it serves them quite intentionally, right? So one of the things that I've talked about before is that so many of these kind of mid-market companies are all trying to serve the large enterprise. Everybody wants to move up to large enterprise.
That's where you're looking for dough,
well,
right?
Well, sure, I suppose so. But I mean, Percussion is saying we were there, and we'd rather go here. We'd rather serve the smaller organization or the departmental play or something. And they have kind of a package price that only is going to hit, well, I won't say their pricing, but it's a five-figure purchase, and not your 6 or 7 figure purchase like they kind of used to be. So I like that direction. But here's the thing. I think they leave, Tyler, a lot of room in terms of speculation around what do you do? I mean, I know I'm doing an awful lot of selection projects, and I'm questioning, do I think of them still as CM system? Where is their support from the standpoint of CM system? If their new direction and all their play and all their new deals that they're winning are on the CM1 side, then what happens with all those legacy customers, and what happens with those companies who are looking for the need to integrate some very complex information into a single through and push it through their various channels? And so I think the jury is still out on that. I think they're deciding that right now. I think it's hard to leave that because you've got an awful large base of customers that are paying you some pretty good maintenance money. But I tell you what, if I'm a CM system customer, I'm thinking down the road a year or two about kind of what I need to do next, right? Because I don't think that they're going to be long for. They're not going to not support it. I don't mean to create any rumors here. There's no question that's a good source of revenue for them. I do think, however, they're primed for a potential acquisition, not necessarily of the whole company, but at least of CM1, if they were to sell that off potentially. They've just gone under some new management where Joe Wykes, the former president, has left there, and they've got a great new president who has a great track record. But I think, and they've brought on a new, and I forget his name because I don't know him personally, they brought on a new CFO that made the news in the past 2 months or so. And this guy, if you look at his background, he's been in the VC world. He's made a lot of purchases and acquisitions and stuff, so I think he's set up to set them for some sort of potential acquisition, at least of the CM1 product. Somebody like an SAP, somebody like that who's looking for that might be ready for it. So.
There you have it, folks, right there. That was in the spotlight, but now we have to move on. It's time to go to one of the favorite segments right here, Rapid Fire. We basically toss up a couple different topics out there for Scott to kind of give us his 2 cents, couple feelings on that, and kind of explain some things out there. And one thing that I want to point out is, remember, make sure you pay very close attention to Rapid Fire, because you really never know when one of these segments is going to become a guest segment or a new segment coming up in just a few weeks. I mean, Scott's basically kind of foreshadowing things to come. So let's go ahead and let's put a couple minutes on the 1 minute on the clock, and let's go ahead and Umbraco goofed on the latest release. They announced it a few weeks ago that they goofed on a release of the version 5 really right now. Scott, the community summed it up best by telling that it was awful, so they basically pulled the plug.
I think this was a pretty bold move by Umbraco. I think you could read an awful lot into this. They did launch their version 5, and they were getting a tremendous, one of the things about having a really large community and being an open source product is when you launch something that's not sitting very well with that community, you hear back from them pretty quickly. And their forums were just filled with complaints about some problems that were ridden through this version 5. And they tried, like any firm, to try to tackle those one after the other, and they tried to queue those, but they were just basically they decided, let's pull the plug on this and let's push yourself back. We're no longer going to support this. I think they're back to version 4.3. I think it was a bold move, but I think it was a really good move from the standpoint of, look, let's just admit it. And it's something for others to follow, that when you're in the situation. I wish there was a number of other versions that would get pulled back on. I think it hurts the open source community a little bit. We've talked about that an awful lot. But I think overall, good on Umbraco to make this move.
All right, so let's talk about basically the next one out there. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Endplay. Is it the end of Endplay? Is Endplay hanging it up? It's been rumored that Endplay may be kind of hanging up their cleats as far as the WCM space is really concerned right now. Shifting direction towards cloud-based dynamic engine. I'm not 100% sure exactly what that means, but explain this for me a little bit, Scott.
I was hoping to get more information than I've got before this, to be honest with you. So this is a bit of an unconfirmed rumor, but it's from a really good source. And we've talked about Endplay, to my dismay, 2 out of the last 4 months, I think. But yes, apparently they're making a bit of a different shift. And it's not to say that the clients that they have in web content management, they're going to go leaving. But some of this, like, we're going to go and change the world of content management because it's done horribly, and we're going to talk to you about quantum content, and we're going to talk to you about all these wonderful things. I think they lose a little bit of credibility. And as I said, I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to see your product and get it out there and see who's using it and how innovative, and they know the number to call me at. But my understanding is they're making a bit of a shift. I don't completely understand the term that they've called it. But look, again, I don't know if this is necessarily another Umbraco. They're not pulling the plug, so to speak, but they are taking a bit of a different direction and saying that their platform could be used for other purposes than just web content management. So, yeah.
All right, let's go to let's talk about Bridgeline, because Bridgeline, they've been just an absolute buzz as of late. New management team, they got a new version of their IAPS WCM platform. Now they announced the major partnership with UPS. It's basically going to be a warehouse management system, which is very interesting to hear. What's buzzing with Bridgeline?
Look, Bridgeline is buzzing an awful lot, I'll tell you. They are not covered by many of this, so Stephen is not covering them necessarily. I think they're working with him a little bit, but he's not in their wave. They're not in the wave. They're not in the quadrant. And I'm not exactly quite sure why. I think some of those reasons are because gating in terms of the number of clients that they have. But this is a good company. This is a good .NET architecture and good .NET system. And they provide commerce. They provide web content management. They provide a number of things. I think this move to make this relationship with UPS is really big, because what this is combining here is the online. We've talked about the digital channels and engagement. And now from a commerce perspective, they're talking about fulfillment and a relationship with UPS and all of their clients, and how now they can take this ordering and commerce aspect of it, the e-commerce aspect of it, you can buy, now that you can have it drop shipped, and you're actually, again, merging these worlds, this online and offline world, that you're allowing some of this to come together under one umbrella, is a really bold move. I think it's really big for them. It gives a lot of fire to their commerce product, and I think people should pay more attention to Bridgeline.
All right, so this next topic that we're going to go ahead and talk about right now happens to be free or gated. It's something that everybody, the CMO, has been going back and forth with the CEO for the last couple years about this. Should the content be behind a gated wall, or should it be free for everybody to see? This is a fun one. We could probably do an entire show on this.
You know, it is a fun one. It's one that I can't answer in 60 seconds, and I'm trying to answer for myself, actually. With the start of Digital Clarity Group, where we want to make all of our content free to the public, it certainly helps you get out there more. It helps you, from a content marketing standpoint, you're providing subject matter expertise on an area. And should you put it behind a firewall so that people have to sign up? I think there is a degree that people are getting used to the notion of having to give something to get something, right? And the question is how much you ask for. So you need to be able to provide, in an engagement world, there's a level of trust that, out of the gate, when you're just new with a customer, you need to be able to give them a lot more information than you're asking for in return. Once you've done that and you've become a trusted source of information, you can get a little bit back for you, and they'll be willing to give it because they see value in that, they see relevance in what you're saying. As you give them a little bit more information, they're going to have to give back a little bit more. So the paywall is a whole different story. Poor New York Times, they're trying to deal with that themselves, and I won't even go there. But I think the point is, give the value in order to get something back from them, and then you'll.
I was going to say that's going to be your freemium, really, right there. You have to make sure you have to take a look at what exactly you're actually putting forward. I mean, if you're just saying, hey, guess what? Take a look at my latest blog post. You can't put that behind a gated registration wall. That's not going to work.
Even for this show, we ask for an email address to be able to sign up and come and see it. We provide great content. We ask for a very little bit back in return. You've got to put value on the table before you can expect anything.
Because if not, guess what? There's a lot of other stuff out there that people can go ahead and get that kind of content for sure.
That's right.
Again, we could have this conversation all day. But you mentioned DCG. You mentioned that just starting up. So Scott, we decided not to give you 1 minute, but let's give you 2 minutes today for DCG. Explain DCG. You and I have had this conversation for the last couple months now, but I'm anxious for you to kind of tell the world exactly who DCG actually is.
And I appreciate the chance to give a plug here for this. Oh, look at that, the 2-minute countdown. That's wonderful. So Digital Clarity Group, DCG, is a firm that I've started just here in the past, since April, and you can see our website there. We've just got a blog for now. We don't have a full website, but we are an analyst firm, a research-based firm that's helping leaders to really navigate this digital transformation that we talk about an awful lot on this show. We've pulled in some wonderful analysts and folks onto our team. We've pulled in Tim Walters from Forrester, who was a guest on the show a couple of months ago, to Stephen Powers' dismay. We've pulled in Kathy McKnight. She covers our social and enterprise perspective. We've pulled in Lee Seeger. We've got some wonderful Robert Rose. So the point here, though, is that we see the world, we think, with all due respect to the Forresters and the Gartners of the world who are still looking at things through this kind of this WCM channel and this commerce channel, we see the notion of employee engagement and customer engagement. Those are the two big challenges that we're trying to help organizations solve. And so there are a number of technologies that fall under each one of those that enable those, and there are a number of practices. Hence Robert Rose, who's written a brilliant book called Managing Content Marketing. Content marketing is a practice. To find that in the wheelhouse of an analyst firm is not necessarily common, but that's because of our approach. And so we take a bit of a different one. We emphasize, really, we certainly help with selection projects. As an example, my background is in web content management, and we help folks define technology solutions that help to power these strategies that they have, but we take a different approach. We're no longer just helping you take on the technology selection. We're also going to help you find an agency, because we think that's probably, good 75% of the end result is dependent on who's implementing this for you and how is it involved in your process. So it's not just about technology. We certainly do provide an awful lot of what we call thought leadership papers, the equivalent of white papers, and research. We're going to provide some really good research from a freemium perspective and from a paid perspective, but I think we're really excited about getting a great team, and I think it's a really good, it's the new approach, I believe, to dealing with this digital transformation that's going on.
Excellent. I love it. There you go. That right there has been CMS Connected for this week. Good show this month, huh?
Yeah, it was. I think we had some really good guests, and it's hot and warm, but it was hot on this stage too, and I think we got some great content out
Excellent.
of it.
Absolutely is. So, for my co-host Scott Lee, we're for Ian Truscott and for Stephen Powers, I am Tyler Pyburn of the Pulse Network. Before we go, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Falcon-Software, as well as DCG, Digital Clarity Group. That'll do it for us here on CMS Connected. We will see you guys next time. Make sure you sign up for next month's webinar. It should, in fact, be a great one. Take care, guys.